Howdy, everybody. It is Alpha Flight Monday. We are looking at Alpha Flight number 25, beginning the third year of Alpha Flight's publication. We got a rip roar here, but he's dead, isn't he? Who could this be? Well, who's died in Alpha Flight history that would make that big of a splash? Well, maybe it's Sasquatch. He just died last issue. Or maybe it's somebody else. We see Roger Box here in his wheelchair, the Box armor, which suggests that, in fact, it's not Walter Lankowski. We have Heather, Aurora, North Star, Puck, Sean. Talisman back there, too. Okay. Well, let's dig in. And graves give up their dead. John Burns, story and pencils. Bob Wycheck, inks. Rick Parker, lettering. Andy Yankus, coloring. Dennis O'Neill, editing. Jim Shooter, editor-in-chief. And Bill Mantlo, creative kibitzing. Aha, the change is a-comin'. This is from August 1985. Well, North Star, you've heard the charges. How do you plead? Oh, he's going to be really good about this, I can tell. You just know. So, a little trial here. They did that in some early issues of the Avengers as well. Plead? Is this a trial, then? If so, I see no one here whom I acknowledge to have the authority to pass judgment over me. No, this is not a trial, Jean-Paul, simply a hearing into the very serious charges your sister has brought against you. Now, please, for your own sake as well as ours, don't let your trademarked cocky attitude interfere with our getting to the truth. Oh, I think he's going to let it get in the way. Oh, so it's the truth you're after, is it? Whose truth, I wonder? Yours, my sister's? Alpha Flight has more than its fair share of secrets. Tell me, if you can, what is to be considered truth and what is not. And it says here in a note, charges stemming from her discovery of North Star's past activities as a terrorist. We talked about that a few issues ago. Essentially, something akin to the Quebec Liberation Front, although I don't know if they're actually referencing that real organization, but something like that. We're not going to get anywhere this way, Mr. Bouvier. Can't you see that? Oh, another quarter heard from. Do I now have to face accusations from outsiders? This is kind of a clever way to introduce Roger Box to the group. Spare us the self-righteous indignation, North Star. Roger Box may be newly recruited into the ranks of Alpha Flight, but he is far less an outsider than you have chosen to be. So everybody's arguing, everybody's fighting. Puck shows up after she says, I am the widow of Guardian, our first leader. So, he's kind of saying, who are you to be in charge, yada, 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 yada. He says, you might want to rephrase that, Heather. Puck, what? I was monitoring the emergency frequency. Talisman just called in. That creep Caliber has busted jail, and he's right in the middle of a big battle downtown with Guardian. Dum, dum, dum. Guardian, of course, being her ex-husband and the ex-leader of Alpha Flight, who we all saw die. So the police are there. This Caliber character, he's got armor and lots of guns, basically. Could almost be considered sort of a parody of what we're going to get a lot of in future comic books into the 90s. Okay, I'll bite. How'd he get loose? You tell me, Talisman. We had the creep all nicely locked away with his poor man's Iron Man suit in a security holding area on the other side of town. Somebody not only busted him out, they got his armor back too. But don't ask me who. I won't. In point of fact, how Caliber got loose is really the least of my concerns. The more pressing question is, what the heck Guardian's doing here in one piece? Huh? So you get the idea. Most people don't know Guardian died. Which is true. They decided not to publicize that. So we see Heather was witnessing the death of Guardian. Nothing is left but a pile of ash, and yet here is Guardian fighting against Caliber, as one might expect him to do. And so we get a little conversation between the two as they fight. I was hoping you'd turn up this time, Guardian. I designed this armor with you in mind. Last time on Alpha Flight was lucky. I wasn't prepared for Aurora's new powers. This time I am. And this time all of Alpha Flight is going to die, starting with you. Think I'll just pass on that if it's all the same to you, friend. See, I've died once already, and it's not an experience I care to repeat any too soon. And you know, for a lot of people, they had to be going, oh man, are they bringing Guardian back? Nobody really necessarily liked to see a character that they enjoyed die in comic books, but everybody coming back all the time had gotten a little bit old at this point too. It seemed like Guardian was going to stay dead, but maybe he isn't. And so he's fighting him, and she's seeing what's going on, and she's not sure what she could really do, since her power is to sort of, she can't generate magic, but she can focus it and turn it back on people using magic. And she says, though, but my father says there are mystic energies abroad everywhere. I only need to find a way to tap into them. This seems as good a time as any to give her a try. And a giant mouth appears. And so she does. And she sends it at Caliber, who tries to shoot her, and surrounds him in this sort of bubble of who knows what. And it pops into all these little bubbles. And you get the guy without his armor. He does look a little bit like a poor man's Tony Stark, too. And so Guardian lands remarkable. My congratulations. Talisman, is it? You may be the new kid on the block, but you handled him like a seasoned professional. I'm impressed. And by this time, Alpha's shown up, and Heather has shown up. I'm not sure I can believe. I understand, darling. It took a long time for me to believe it myself, but it's true, and I think I know one good way to prove it. And they have a big kiss. And that should be a really nice thing. Chapter 2. Up from the Lazarus Box. Take it easy, babe. Don't try to move too fast. Oh, forgive the cliches, but what happened? You fainted, Heather. Quite the normal reaction under the circumstances. So she faints. And so now we get this story of how he's still alive. I hit the proper sequence, and when the pack blew, it ripped open the fabric of the universe itself, and also carbonized the air immediately around me. So the electric feedback, when his suit shorted out, didn't kill him. It sent him into another dimension. And the ashes that were left were the air around him. That sounds a little iffy to me. And so, where did he end up going? Much to my surprise, I didn't wind up instantly dead. I'm only mostly dead, although I couldn't begin to guess where I had wound up. All I could tell through the shock of transition, coupled with a probable concussion and massive internal hemorrhaging from the battle, was that it was bloody cold, and I couldn't breathe whatever was passing for air. Then I turned around, looked at the sky and stars, and figured out where I was. Ganymede, the largest of Jupiter's moons. That particular revelation did me little good, however. Within seconds, I was unconscious, perhaps even dead, sprawled out on the frozen water crust of that little planet. And that's when something finds him. The Kuwurlin. Don't bother trying to pronounce it. It took me months to get my mouth to wrap around it in a manner that satisfied me. So these weird aliens, who kind of look like a little bit like the dudes from Simpsons, show up. They basically save him. And he discovers that he's 10,000 years in the past. Even if they could return him to Earth, what would be the point? When I awoke, 100 centuries later, so they put him into this deep freeze. At some point during my long slumber, the Kuwurlin had become engaged in a major conflict, a world war. The culture that survived bore no resemblance to the one I had left. They had essentially bombed themselves back into the Stone Age. I had one long moment of utter black, bottomless despair, but it turned out to be unfounded. My friends had destroyed themselves, but they had not failed me. So we basically get this story about these aquatic creatures that live on Ganymede under the ice crust. They destroy themselves in a world war. He's in this sort of slumber for thousands of years to the modern time, finds this rocket. 28 months later, he arrives in British Columbia. Oopsie daisy. And the ship dissolved when it hit the water. And 30 seconds later, his spacesuit did the same. And he gets to the coast, and he was naked, finds a cabin, puts on some clothes, heads out looking for everybody. And I couldn't bring myself to face you, realizing how long it had been since my death, realizing the changes in my life and yours. I thought, at least at that moment, that it might be better if you went on thinking I was dead, went on with your life without me. And that's when Heather thought she saw him. That's why he left. Oh, you big jerk. I have no life without you. Don't you see that, Mac? I've been soldiering along with my heart held together by baling wire and spit. You were the first real, the only real love of my life. When you died, everything inside me died with you. Heather, I love you, etc., etc., etc. But they had to put me back together again. So now he's not entirely human. So he's kind of a cyborg at this point. And he thinks maybe that's going to mean that she doesn't love him anymore. Not quite meanwhile. Aha, the dread, harmless boulder lying there minding its own business. Have at you. For heaven's sake, Mr. Lankowski, be careful. There's been no opportunity to give the new box a proper shakedown. You could damage him severely that way. I thought this Tin Woodsman of yours was supposed to be nearly indestructible, Box. I mean, if this is going to be home sweet home, now my real body's been destroyed, well, a fellow should be able to have some fun. But what kind of fun, Showalter? Corked into a machine like that? So we're looking at we're referring to last issue. Walter Lankowski's body was destroyed. His soul is now in that box armor. And while Aurora is glad that Walter is alive, Walter's not exactly human anymore. Kind of like we just saw with Guardian. Well, hey, it's still me in here after all. You love me for my mind, too, don't you? Don't you? That is something I'll have to think about. Aurora! Well, ain't that a kick in the head? Here I am busily adjusting to the kind of trauma that would put 10 normal men in the rubber room for the duration. And she has to go and hit me with that little emotional haymaker. Not surprising, though, is it, Mr. Lankowski? From what I've seen of Mademoiselle Beaubier, well, it seems like her needs would require more than any generations of my box series could provide. And just what is that crack supposed to mean? Oh, nothing offensive, sir. Only that Mademoiselle Beaubier is, well, a very physical lady. She needs a man with a real human form. And I think I know how we can get you one. So, this is a little bit of an in-betweener issue. We just saw this big battle last issue where they have to go down into, well, not hell exactly, but this extra-dimensional realm of the beasts to rescue Walter Lankowski's soul. And they destroy Somon, one of the great beasts, or at least think they have, and the other beasts are fighting amongst themselves. And they've destroyed Tanarak, they believe, as well. So usually after you get a big issue like that, you get something a little bit simpler. So this one, we see the apparent return of Heather Hudson's husband, Mac, also known as Guardian, the founder of Alpha Flight, who died at the end of their first year of publication. We've had a year's worth of Heather trying to adjust to that death, assuming leadership in Alpha Flight, even though she has no superpowers. So all kind of a big deal. We now have Walter Lankowski adjusting to essentially being a robot rather than a human being. And Roger Box with a plan for maybe making him human again. What could that mean? We also see that now Guardian is sort of a cyborg. those strange creatures that saved him on Ganymede had to, had to sort of mess around, do a little MacGyver work to get him back in working order. So, an in-betweener issue, but with a couple big revelations that we're going to see more of in 30 days, with the apparent return also of Omega Flight, who were somewhat responsible for Guardian's death. So, Alpha Flight number 25. What do you think, folks? What do you think of these revelations? What do you think of the changes these characters are once again going through? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to chat with you there, hear what you have to say. If you are so inclined, please maybe think of subscribing to the channel. We do Alpha Flight Monday every Monday. It's not just a clever name. And I do a couple review videos during the week as well of other pop culture items, movies, books, TV shows, toys, etc., etc. So maybe think of subscribing, maybe share with a friend if you think they might enjoy these videos. I would really appreciate that as I try to grow my little YouTube channel into a giant monster that can take over the world. I can't do it without you. Those of you who subscribe early will be among my elite. We will rule the world. No, hold on. I just want to grow this thing to have a little bit of fun and chat about pop culture and try to keep it positive. So if that sounds good to you, maybe join the club. Anywho, until next time, God bless everybody. Please be kind to one another. Have a little bit of fun out there. And I will hopefully see you again soon in Dad's Den of Pop Culture. Bye-bye.